Hello, everybody. This is Steve Bennett. My guest today is Dr. Elaine Melotti Schmidt. Dr. Schmidt received her doctorate in educational leadership and policy studies from Temple University and has worked in or consulted with schools on 3 continents. With a special passion for reaching children living in poverty or born with learning or physical differences, Schmidt's areas of specialization include early childhood education, special needs, second language learners, and at-risk student instruction. Dr. Schmidt is also an art collector who specializes in realist paintings of women by women artists. This undertaking has afforded Dr. Schmidt the opportunity to meet many struggling women artists, as well as to create a collection of paintings showing women from all walks of life. Dr. Schmidt has curated a number of art exhibitions, including Visions of Venus and Venus's Visions, which appeared at the Zhou B Art Center in Chicago in 2018. And in addition, she and her spouse, that's me, curated Painting the Figure Now at the Wausau Museum of Contemporary Art in Wausau, Wisconsin in 2021. In addition to this, Dr. Schmidt has been named one of 4 jurors for the 4th iteration of the Bennett Prize for Women Figurative Realist Painters, the call for entries for which is now open. Dr. Schmidt, welcome.
Hello. Thank you for asking me.
Glad you're here. It's very exciting to have you. This is the first time we've had the opportunity to interact this way.
Yes. We'll see if it's the last time.
Do you think that's likely? I don't think so. I think we should do this with more frequency. Now, you began your career as an educator specializing in special needs children. How do you think your experiences in the realm of special education have influenced your taste and prepared you for a life as a curator, a collector, and now a Bennett Prize juror?
As a special educator or as an educator, period, one has to observe the behavior of children. And you look for antecedents, you look for small changes, you look for how they're acquiring or not acquiring new knowledge and skills. And so I think that primarily that capability where it becomes an observer has helped me as I've transferred my background and my knowledge to the field of art. Also, I became a public school principal, was principal for 20 years. And I was thinking about it. You kind of curate your staff because you need them to represent all the children in your building if you can. I wanted my staff to represent people who were brand new as well as veterans. I wanted people of all ages. And you kind of use the same principles when you curate an art collection, because you're defining your objective, which is, in our case, of women by women. In that case, it was to find the highest quality people I could for the staff, and you use some of those same principles.
So in curating your staff, what did you find the most telling trait that you looked for when curating the staff?
You've disappeared from my screen. I don't know if that matters.
Well, I don't want to disappear altogether.
Oh.
I want you to be the star of the show, but I don't want to be totally unknown here. So
yeah. Actually, the research shows that you always look for your foundational trait is empathy. Yeah. You want teachers who are empathetic to their students, and then from there you take it. You build your building.
So when you work with students, with children. Where in the work with students do the visual arts find their expression most importantly as part of the educational journey?
Oh, I think you see the visual arts and the fine arts, especially with young children. They always talked about developing the whole child, the whole student. And so you have to work with the emotional, the physical, the intellectual, and the creative sides of people in order to foster their ultimate development. So, the visual arts are very important. You allow children to create. And that was something I always was very careful and a stickler for. I didn't allow crafts. Crafts have a place, but not, I didn't think, in the school curriculum. I wanted children to be exposed more to art and to exploring different mediums and to being trained in different basic techniques. And you'd be amazed at, 5-year-olds can do decent still lifes with a little bit of instruction. And then also you have visual arts in terms of good literature. Book illustrations can be incredibly beautiful and take a lot of talent. And that's one of the things that's important to do with young children, is to read to them a lot and have them read a lot. And I also, in my schools, we never did the pre-bought bulletin board kits or anything where you'd have 30 owls that all look the same. The kids just glued the pieces together hanging. The art was always art. And one of my requirements was that it be displayed beautifully. So we would match the work of the children, or we would do kind of a gallery hang, but it was never 30 of the same thing. And so what I also had my teachers do was save some of the best work from the year before, so that when school opens in August, you had children's work to display on the bulletin boards, because I wanted a space for children to begin to develop a good sense of aesthetics.
So when children find their work matted and raised to a higher level in the eyes of adults, does that change their attitude towards the construction of visual art?
Yes. Now, let me just say, it's matted with a, tag border construction paper. It's not professionally matted, but
it does elevate the work.
It does elevate the work, and you are showing them that this is important. It's a quote unquote treasure. And even young children, they go through developmental stages, of course, but in elementary school, that shows that you honor their work. And so they spend more time investing in their efforts as they create their art.
So in your journey as an educator, did you work with children who had visual impairments?
I did. They were part of the special needs population that we served. Not a large number, but a few children, yes.
And how do you think the experience you had with visually impaired children influenced your approach to the visual arts, both as an educator and as a collector and a curator?
That's a hard question. I don't know how much it really has. Whenever you work with any kind of special need versus typically developing children, you do appreciate just how easy it is for typically developing children to do so many things, and for children with special needs, how much work it takes and how hard it is for them to acquire it. But I don't know that I've transferred that to collecting.
Well, today, you're no longer recognized only for your expertise as an educator, but you are prominently, actually quite prominently recognized as an art collector, a curator, and a philanthropist. What led you to expand on the career that you had first as an educator, and then to step into the role of art collector and art curator?
I married you.
Oh,
Okay.
the blame belongs to me.
I retired from being an administrator to move to San Antonio to marry Steve. And we started to collect together. Even while we were still dating, we decided we were going to collect art. And we decided we wanted to collect art done by women. There's a justice issue that we'll come back to in all of that. And there was a practical side of it too. Yeah, so that's how I ended up starting to collect. And then I had some opportunities to curate a few art shows. And as we got to know the artists that we were collecting, there are a lot of incredible women artists. We would talk to them and listen to them. And out of that, we decided that we would start the prize as a tangible support for women in the arts, and to try to elevate their work in the view of others. And so that's what happened. We did it together. You and I, we had a joint mission, and we've been working on it ever since.
I'm your biggest admirer, Doctor. Your biggest admirer.
My only coworker here.
We're going to get to the Bennett Prize in a minute. You have other philanthropic interests. And for the benefit of the viewers and listeners, perhaps you would describe some of those philanthropic interests. Give us a sense of what moves your heart and soul as a human, as an individual.
Well, clearly children move my heart and soul, and girl children, just because there are a lot of inequities still involving them. So we jointly are involved with an orphanage in Kenya that educates girls. And frankly, in that society, which is still, especially the north central part of Kenya, it's very tribal. And the men view themselves as warriors. They show up, impregnate, leave the women with the kids, and go. So the women have to essentially raise the children as well as earn a living for themselves. So we are involved in educating. It's a pre-K through high school for girls. The Europeans were supporting the boys' orphanage. And so when we discovered this organization, FOCO, it was basically the Canadians and the Americans who were taking the responsibility to help educate the girls. So that's a big one. As you know, I'm a sucker for children. So
there was a cartoon from the New Yorker a while back that perfectly captured you, I think. And in that cartoon, the husband has walked in the door. He has his briefcase in one hand and his coat over his arm. And the room is full of children all over everywhere. They're on the furniture, they're on the floor, they're at the table. And the wife says to the husband, I visited the orphanage today.
Yes,
Is that kind of the idea, do you think?
That is very much the idea.
So listening to your philanthropic interest in helping young women, most of them orphans, abandoned children, HIV suffering orphans, many of them in Kenya, do you think there's a crossover between that effort and your desire to help women artists?
Yeah, it's the same trajectory, isn't it? You can't, I think you have to hone in on a few areas that you specifically have a passion for. In order, I always talk about making this world a better place. And frankly, it makes me a better person and it makes me happy to be able to help others. And so I do think that we're helping girls in both cases, right? We're educating, trying to put them in a position where they can take care of themselves, be safe, and earn a living. And we're essentially doing the same thing with women artists here. We're trying to support them either through acquisition of their work or perhaps through some of the things associated with the prize, so that they can, live their life fully and be able to paint and be able to support themselves. And if they have a family, their family. So it's related.
You are the co-curator of the Bennett Collection. And I think most of the people watching the podcast would say, we know the Bennett Collection. And you've played a significant role in the acquisitions that the collection has undertaken. How would you describe your personal taste?
Well, for those in the audience who have heard you and I talk before about this, we always talk about it as a Venn diagram. I would say we both like quality art with a strong narrative. And I tend to like, you like edgier, I don't want to say softer around the edges because that's not true. I like my narrative to be maybe not so, if in order to experience valleys, you have to have mountaintops. And I find that art a lot of time focuses on the valleys, and I like mountaintops too. The joy and those warm, fuzzy things that make people happy. And so in our collection, we have one that's called School Crossing, and it's a mother who's the primary figure leading her children across the street. And we have another one of a pregnant woman. And so those are the kinds of things that, like, maybe narratives from everyday life that demonstrate joy and contentment.
That's fair. So you're about to commence your service as a juror for the Bennett Prize, and the stated objective of the Bennett Prize is to propel the careers of women figurative realist painters. And one of the ways in which the prize does this is by funding both a competition and a traveling exhibition of the work of women painters who have not received or achieved full professional recognition. Do you agree with the premise that women have not been fully embraced by big art, which I define as auction houses, museums, galleries, and the like? And if so, can you share some of your thoughts on the ways in which these problems of inequity could be addressed?
Yeah, I do agree with that comment, though I would say that we got involved maybe, what, 12, 13 years ago, we started to think about this situation. And I would say that things are slowly improving. How do I think they can continue to improve is more advocacy to include women's work in the canon. I think we need to have more women in positions of leadership in the art world. Not that men can't choose beautiful works by women and women can't choose quality works by men, but I do think it helps having both genders at the table, and it fosters good dialogue and discussion. And I think ultimately, sometimes it takes a female to describe perhaps what another female might be trying to do. And to just have that voice at the table, I think is valuable.
When I was a student at Notre Dame many, many years ago, I entered a Notre Dame that was not coeducational. It was an all-male school when I was admitted as a freshman. And some of us were agitating for a coeducational Notre Dame. And I vividly remember that the response of one of the priests at one of these forums where this was being discussed was being agitated that we need to be co-ed. And the world is co-ed, so said one of the students. And the priest who was responding said, so is hell.
And so is heaven.
Yes, so is heaven. So
yeah, I won't question your motives that you were just looking for your dates more readily, but
oh, that's a whole nother topic.
yeah.
So you're entering the Bennett Prize 4.0 as a juror. And I think some of our viewers and listeners are very anxious to hear just riff on what you look for and what your thoughts are on what works and this kind of thing. What works for you? What will you be looking for among contestants and the like?
Well, I think we will acknowledge up front that I am an outlier as a juror up to now, including you. Everybody has a background in art or been trained in art history. So I am the first, perhaps self-taught curator, just like a self-taught artist, right?
Sure, but I don't think there's a single contestant or a single individual who would take the position that because you don't have formal training that you are not qualified to be a juror. In fact, I think there is an argument to be made that not being trained by the very same people who have created the world that we have inherited, where women are not included and not respected, it may be a qualification that is positive that you are not a product of that world. So I wouldn't be self-denigrating in that way. But having said that, taking you as you are with your background and your experience, look, you own a whole bunch of art that you have helped collect, and you have a point of view that is easily described as a very high level of personal taste. And you and I go 300 days a year looking at artists and studios and collecting and galleries and art shows and art fairs. So I think what people would like to hear you say is, what turns you on? Talk about some of your recent acquisitions. Talk about what moved you in recent days, maybe.
Um, well, I would say a complex narrative, but a narrative that is communicated would be essential. So that would be one thing. High quality execution, when you develop an eye so that you know when something is well done. I would say I'm looking for something that's not kitsch. You go to some art shows and you see 1,000 big heads. I love portraiture. I love effective portraiture, but a big head that takes up the whole canvas when you've seen 400 other big heads, to me, I guess I'm looking for some uniqueness and some creativity. And probably the one thing that I'll be bringing to the table that the other three jurors might not be, because I've not been a juror, but I've been involved with the first three renditions of the prize. I will have in the back of my mind, I want the works by the 10 finalists to be different from one another and yet be able to talk to one another. So I guess maybe I'll bring kind of a curatorial eye, or that larger picture to the table as we make our decisions.
So just for the sake of coming to know you better as a curator and a lover of art, maybe you could name painters that you like and admire. Give some insight into painters that you think are pretty exciting, and they can be living or dead. Pick dead girls, maybe.
Yeah, I think it's safer with dead because there are a lot of living painters that I think are fabulous and who I just love their work. But that's the problem. When you start to name six, you don't name six others. So I think we're going to stick with.
Okay.
Historical.
Stick with the dead girls. They're safe.
All right, historical.
Who among the dead girls, as I like to call them, women painters who reached a level of recognition, or maybe not, who stir your imagination? Who would they be?
Well, I'm going to start with Mary Cassatt.
Okay.
I have always loved Mary Cassatt. I'm sure it was because she did a lot with women and their children. When I had no money, I bought at the Smithsonian in DC a print of Children on the Beach by Mary Cassatt, and I rolled it up, took it home, took it to Michael's, matted it and framed it myself, and then hung in my bedroom for probably 20 years. I always have loved Mary Cassatt's work in it.
Wonderful painter, a very sensitive depiction of women and children. It would figure that you as an educator would be very attracted to the nurturing nature of her work. And there is a beautiful sense of motherly love and protection present in many of the works that she did of women and children together. I think that's fair. Name another one. Pick another dead girl.
And it's as we've been collecting, I've learned about more historic women artists.
Sure.
And one of, I would say, somebody who falls into that category is Plautilla Nelly.
Tell the audience, I'm not sure she's a household name. Give the audience a little insight into Plautilla Nelly.
And you're going to correct me if I'm wrong. She was a nun
Yes.
and in Florence, right?
Siena, I think, but yeah, at any rate, she's an Italian nun.
Right. So it, Italy at that time were city-states, and the city-states were run by priests, and by each, like the head was like the Pope. So Petronelli's Pope decided that in order to keep the women nuns from causing trouble, that he would allow them to learn to paint. And so she actually took the lead and set up this little school for other nuns. And not only did they stay out of trouble, but they painted some beautiful pieces of work. And St. Catherine of Siena is a painting that we were fortunate enough to acquire. And that is Platillo Nelli's patron saint.
Yeah, it's the patron saint of her order, I think.
Yeah. And her work is just beautiful. It's, it's really astounding.
Okay, Plautillanelli. So, third time's a charm. Do you have any other women, dead women painters that you'd like to reference?
Oh, I really like Peggy Bacon, and she's in a totally different genre, almost satirical art, perhaps.
Yeah, she was a caricaturist, probably the most famous caricaturist of the 30s, who quit being a caricaturist because she made everybody mad.
I like her because it has some humor in it.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and
she
was
plays it very effectively.
Yeah, that's certainly true. So, do you have any advice for would-be contestants of the Bennett Prize, people who are women who are considering entering the 4.0 competition? What advice would you offer them?
I would say first and foremost, go for it. Every jury has different tastes. They're looking for different things. If you applied before, apply again, just because you just never know. And why not? Give it a try. That's probably the first thing.
Okay, give it a try. That's number one. What's number two?
Number two is ask your sister or your friend who functions like a sister or brother to help you choose the works that you submit. My sister will be brutally honest with me. And
knowing your sister, I can attest that that's true. Yes.
And bring a different truth to the table. Okay, so I think sometimes artists don't choose their best work, because I followed people on Instagram and then I looked at what the paintings they sent for the prize, and I'm sitting there saying to myself, oh, this was, in my eye, better, right? So have somebody help you choose the paintings that you enter. And I think it's important that the contestants know that it can't be work that was done 10, 15 years ago. It has to be contemporary work, because part of the prize is selecting somebody who will paint a whole new show. So you have to, I think, a juror wants to see that the person is actively painting in the same ilk, not necessarily exactly the same, but in the same ilk as what the entry paintings represent.
That's two, I guess. Keep going.
The last one is, my last point would be quality photography. submit really good photos. Some people don't go to the trouble to do that, and that really hurts your chances of being selected, because most of the artists do, and it puts their works in the limelight, right? You know, when it's done properly, that makes all the difference in the world, and it helps the jurors choose before they go to the finalists, where the 10 finalists are chosen by the actual works. The photos of the work are for the first round of elimination, and so it's really important you have good quality photos.
I couldn't agree with you more. That's very sound advice.
Well, I've been listening to you.
Good work. Good work. Now, back in the old days, many years ago, when I conducted interviews with would-be employees, one of the favorite questions I had was, at the end, I would say, is there any question I did not ask that you wish I had? And so I'm going to ask you, what question haven't I asked that you wish I had?
Let me think about this for a minute. Maybe a philosophical question, perhaps something like, well, why are you passionate about?
I'll come up with a philosophical question for you.
Just you know me, so make sure I can answer it.
When the day is done and you, and probably me, but you are pushing up daisies, what is it that you would like to be remembered for?
That she respected all people and tried to live her life to improve the lives of others.
That's a very poignant, and as someone who knows you intimately, I think that accurately typifies, describes your desires. So that's.
And then didn't ask me about our grandchildren.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm sure everybody wants to hear about that. Go ahead, riff on the grandchild. We have a youthful grandchild that you want to talk about. Go ahead.
We have a 15-month-old grandchild who we have been exposing to crayons and paper, and we are now to the point where she's not trying to eat the crayons anymore. So we're making developmental progress with her, and yeah, so it's important to make the world a better place, right, for the next generation,
for all of those who come after, right?
Amen.
Amen. Well, Dr. Schmidt, thank you for a perfectly fascinating discussion. No, it really is. It's wonderful to interview you and to hear you give your unvarnished opinions to all of our audience, many of whom I think will be seeking the Bennett Prize in its 4th iteration. For those of you who joined late, my guest today has been Dr. Elaine Melotti Schmidt, a wonderful, wonderful arts educator and philanthropist, art collector, curator, and now Bennett Prize juror. She will be joined in the Bennett Prize 4.0 judging by figurative realist painters Margaret Boland and Angela Fraley. And they, the three, will be joined by noted art historian and curator of European painting at the Art Institute of Chicago, Dr. Gloria Groom. What a powerful group of women this is. It is the first all-women jury. It is going to be spectacular, and I'm absolutely confident this will be the best prize yet. And as we wrap up, let me say that the doc and I most sincerely look forward to being with you at the opening of the Bennett Prize exhibition at the Muskegon, Michigan Museum of Art in May 2024. And I personally very much look forward to your work, Doc, in judging the Bennett Prize competition this fall. Just a reminder to everyone of the important Bennett Prize dates. The call for entries, which opened on April 15th, will close on October 4th, 2024. The top 10 finalists will be announced in the first week of December, probably December 2nd. And the opening and announcement of the winners will be announced at the Muskegon Art Museum in Muskegon, Michigan on May 15th of 2025. Yes.
One thing. Steve and I call the 10 finalists personally and tell them they're finalists. So if you get a call from an unknown number
in San Antonio, Texas,
or mine's Dallas.
All right, in Texas.
In Texas, pick up or at least check your messages.
Yes, we can take an aside here and say that we've had difficulty reaching several finalists over the years. They see an odd number from Texas and don't pick up, and you leave these messages that people don't listen to, and then you find that you're sending frantic text messages and emails trying to get somebody to communicate with. Who are you and what do you want? Okay, the exhibition of the work of the 4.0 finalists and the solo exhibition of the 3.0 winner, Shikeng Deng, will be on display from May 16th to August 24th, 2025. And then both of those exhibitions will travel the country for 2 years. Again, if you're an eligible woman painter, please consider becoming a contestant for the Bennett Prize 4.0, the call for entries for which is open now. You can find the complete rules for entry at www.thebennettprize, 2 N's and 2 T's in Bennett.org. Again, thebennettprize.org. Anything to add, Doctor?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. It's been great. We'll see you in Muskegon next year.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.